Hi! I'd like to showcase my golden XP farm design that I built in my Let's Play series. It combines pretty standard spawning platforms with what I believe is to be an innovative killing chamber and a slightly different and fun loot system. Let's start with the standard stuff. These are perfectly normal spawning platforms that come from the gold farm designed by Gnembom. I could not improve on them, so I just copied his design exactly. And if you want to know how they work, you should definitely watch his video. It will be linked in the description and probably an iCard somewhere up in the corner of this video, because he explains everything about why the platform look the way they are, why there are grindstones here, how the eggs work, and everything else. The only thing I changed from his world download was the placement of this egg, because for some reason it was buggy on the top platform here, and I'm not exactly sure if something changed in Minecraft or there was just a bug in his world download. Anyway, the spawning platforms are standard, and they are giving us zombified piglins who are chasing the eggs and falling down these chutes and down to the killing chamber. A normal killing chamber would have some hoppers here and probably hopper minecarts to spread out the loot between multiple hoppers underneath, and then droppers that would be shooting out the loot somewhere, and then the loot would be falling down on some ice platforms where we'd be pushing the loot with slime. That's what people normally use in the Nether. A few months ago I showcased a loot system like this that could be used in the Nether. And back then it could only deal with mobs that were dying from fall damage. And since then I've been attempting a few different solutions for how to make this system work with a looting and XP farm. And I think this is one of the possibilities. I have already used this system for a Wither Skeleton farm, but it works differently than this one. This one has the additional problem of baby zombified piglins, and the same solution I'm using for the Wither Skeleton farm cannot be used here. So what's happening here is the zombified piglins are falling down on these hay bales. We kill them with a looting sword. And then once in a while we extend these pistons with hay bales in front of them and push down the loot into the hole here. That's the basic general idea, but the devil is of course in the details. After the loot falls down, it lands on this piston feed tape, where we have soul sand blocks, which are slightly lower than the glass blocks, and as you can see, the glass blocks will be pushing the loot that is on the soul sand blocks. Then the loot passes over item filters, and whatever the item filters don't pick up, and that includes XP orbs, gets destroyed by the lava here. There is also a backup system in case anything goes through this that picks up the loot and shoots it with droppers into lava. But this pretty much never activates anymore. This was mostly useful for an earlier version of this machine where the lava wasn't destroying that much. If you've seen this machine in my Let's Play series, you maybe have spotted that there are certain differences, and they are quite important, so I'm gonna go through them first. Number one, it is that this piston and this part of the piston feed tape has been moved in this direction one block. And this is important because this makes the loot fall down always on a block rather than falling down here. Because if the loot gets punched by this piston, it jumps around and a lot of it was spilling out. As you can see, there is pretty much no spillage. At this moment there is no spillage. There is still a little bit of spillage sometimes, mostly swords, and I don't know why, but the problem has been eliminated compared to what I have in my Let's Play series. The other difference is that we have soul sand instead of slabs. And it is the soul sand that allows the lava traps to work, because the entities are big enough to stick over the soul sand and get into the lava and get destroyed by that. And that means that these droppers here don't have to work at all. And a third difference is that in my Let's Play version of this farm, I had a slab, glass, or in this case it would be soul sand, glass, glass. And to have 2 soul sands, 1 glass, 2 soul sands, 1 glass has the advantage that it picks up the loot more reliably. I'm not exactly sure about the mechanics of it, but this was just arrived at experimentally. It is faster because before some of the items could get stuck here. The disadvantage of this is that the items are being moved over the filters in bigger batches. It doesn't seem to matter, the double speed item filters seem to be keeping up, but that's one thing to watch out for. Technically these don't have to be double speed item filters, because we're getting about 40 to 45,000 gold nuggets per hour, so 5 filters should be enough, and then we have also 1 for gold ingots, since there's actually a significant amount of gold ingots dropping from the zombified piglins. But I would probably go for double speed item filters just to empty the hoppers faster, because like I said, we're getting the items in big batches. If you can't use double speed item filters and they don't keep up, I would recommend removing this lava trap here, extending the piston feed tape a little bit more, and adding more item filters here. Technically you only need a lava trap here and could use this side for item filters as well, which might be useful if you want to keep the rotten flesh for some reason. Now, that was the loot system. What about the killing chamber? In the killing chamber, the zombified piglins are falling down on these hay bales. They get killed with sweeping, and you probably want smite on your sword as well, and of course looting, because otherwise this would be pointless. Once in a while we extend these pistons with hay bales and we push the loot down. The reason why we want to have hay bales here is because we don't want the zombified piglins to die from fall damage. Now, there is a problem though. For some reason, and I am not exactly sure why and how this works, the zombified piglins have a chance of dying on these blocks, even though they are hay bales, while they are being extended by the piston. I do believe it has something to do with the magic block that blocks turn into when they're being moved by a piston, and that can kill the zombified piglins when they're falling. Therefore, we don't want to extend these pistons too often, and just to reduce the probability of the zombified piglins to die from fall damage when these are being extended. If we do it about once every 100 ticks, it seems to reduce the rates by 1%, and that's barely measurable. In the beginning, in the first version of this farm, we extended these pistons much more often, and it definitely affected the rates. Therefore, this clock here has 10 items. This seems like a good enough compromise between how often we push the loot down so that the loot system can keep up, and how rarely we extend the pistons so that the zombified piglins don't die from fall damage. Now let's get into Spectator, because now we're gonna look at the complicated part of the farm, which is down here. When the hay bales push the items down, there is a stair here. The walls here don't really matter, they could either be stairs or walls, but this part here has to be stairs, and trust me, we have tried different blocks on my creative server. The stairs worked the best. And what we're trying to achieve here is to not push the loot into the pockets of the player that is doing the killing, while still allowing the XP orbs to get to the player. There might be a different way of solving this problem, but this is the best I've got right now, and it seems to work well enough. The grindstones that the player is standing against, they are specifically there because if you have a full-size block, the player is too far away for sweeping to work, and if the player is closer than a grindstone or a chest works too, but grindstone works slightly better, then for some reason the XP doesn't get to the player. What we want to do is the XP to fly to the player, and if there is too much XP it's gonna build up and get destroyed on the cactus. Right now I do believe we might be destroying a little bit too much of the XP, but it's working well enough. If the player moves away from the grindstone just by half a step, it doesn't actually take much, the XP will be falling down into the loot system and then get destroyed by the lava. And that's another reason why we need the lava here, because if the XP were to fall into the loot system, it would build up so fast that the server would lag out within minutes. There will be a world download with this exact farm in it. And to build it, you need to keep a few things in mind. Oh, and by the way, we had our first spillage. This is very uncommon, but it does happen. Sometimes items fall out, but they don't build up, so it's not an issue for lag. But for things that you need to think about when building this, of course, there is no proper loot system. This is just for demonstration. So you should replace the wool blocks with chests or shulker box loaders, or as I have in my Let's Play world, autocrafters, whatever you need. This is not provided by this world download. Another thing worth keeping in mind is that you do want to have a good sword with Smite 5 and Sweeping Edge, and of course looting. The beacon is not strictly necessary, but it definitely helps, especially it helps when demonstrating this, so I don't need to give food to my second account. There is 10 items in this clock. The item filters need to be set up like this, if you want to have double speed item filters, the way they are set up right now. This has to be full of the item you're filtering, and this needs to be set up as a normal filter. And the same thing with here. Set up as a normal filter, and this hopper needs to be full of the item you're filtering. And all of them are set up the same way. If you haven't watched Dembom's video like I recommended, and I definitely recommend you doing that instead of listening to my explanation, but if you haven't and it is your first time building a gold farm, there are a few things you need to think about. One is that this is a relatively low position for the killing position for the player, so you need to be careful about where you're placing the farm. Number one is you need to be in Never Wastes. No other biome is good enough. All the spawning platforms have to be in Never Wastes. Another thing you need to think about is that since you're relatively low, every single position below you within 128 blocks from where the player is gonna be standing has to be spawn proof. Now, I just removed the world here in the world download just for testing, but I will show you how I did this in my Let's Play world and how important it is to choose the right position for the farm. Hello, welcome to my Let's Play world. So I chose the original position where I wanted to build this farm to be here because I didn't really think. But if we just go down, and I'm gonna use FreeCam for this, if we look down here, there are so many potential places where things can spawn. I went into a creative backup of this world and did some measurements and calculations, and there's around 40,000 blocks I would have to spawn proof below me. Now let's go to where I actually built the farm, which isn't that far. This is just here. And if we look below here, there is a lava lake, and the number of blocks I needed to spawn proof was 4,000. 40,000 versus 4,000, and this was just 100 blocks away. And the way I spawn proofed everything is with buttons. So any spawnable surface should just have buttons, buttons, buttons. Measure 128 blocks from where the killing position is, and spawn proof everything. And it is very important that you do spawn proof absolutely everything, because even a 10 or 15 blocks that are not properly spawn proof will have a measurable impact on your farm. And if you miss some blocks, you most likely won't miss just 15 or 20 blocks. You will probably miss 100 or 200 blocks, and that will cut the rates of the farm in half or even worse. So it's definitely important that you spawn proof this. Just use the mini-HUD mod. The mini-HUD mod will help you to find the spaces where you need to spawn proof. And a warning sign for a farm is optional, but recommended because this noise is very annoying. The rates of this farm are around, I would say 90 to 92,000 items per hour, and this is in survival in a real farm that I have built, not just in creative test world. Gives me about 6,000-ish gold ingots per hour. Anyway, that should cover everything you need to know to build and operate this thing. There will be a world download in the description, of course, so that you can see how this whole thing is constructed. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments and I'll answer anything I understand. But if not, thanks for watching and have a good gold farming. Bye!